We know things do happen. So, so you actually hired me and my team to help you and your husband with your visas, and
Right.
everything I think was going smoothly until you both landed at the airport here. Tell us, give us the Coles Note version of what happened when you came to the airport.
Sure. So we went to the Mexican consulate in Los Angeles. Very helpful. Again, I had done a lot of research, made sure that I had all my paperwork in order. But you and your team were super helpful prior to us even going to the Mexican consulate to be aware of the questions we might get asked, the paperwork that we'd need, and just how to handle ourselves there. What we didn't realize when we both got our visas that day, which was great, and even the agent at the consulate said, make sure you go through the resident line when you land in Puerto Vallarta and gave us all those tips. What happened though is my husband was born in Puerto Rico. And Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory, and on his passport it does say, in place of birth, Puerto Rico, comma, USA. Just like I was born in Wisconsin and my passport says Wisconsin, comma, USA. However, the coding that the agent at the consulate put in for me was USA on the visa, which was great. But for my husband Albert, they put on PRI, Puerto Rico. And so that was a red flag when we got, I got through immigration without an issue. That was flagged for him. So we had to kind of step aside. We were there for, about an hour. But the agent was super helpful, and he said, "We see these inconsistencies, not only with U.S. residents, we also see it with Canadian residents." The example he gave was you could have a Canadian resident who was who also had a U.S. passport or naturalized U.S. citizen, but their place of birth is Canada,
Mhm.
So it's just those little details that you really have to take a look at when you're at the consulate. Anyway, long story short, we got a long letter, very official, and the agent at the airport said they'll take care of this when you go to your immigration appointment. We told him we had one. We arrived on a Saturday. We had our immigration appointment on a Tuesday. And when we went to the immigration office, I had no problem, getting through the process, fingerprints, photo, digital signature, card issued. When it got to Albert, because of that issue, um, there was a long discussion, and what needed to happen is the head of the immigration office in Puerto Vallarta had to call the airport because what they did at the airport is instead of stamping Albert's visa, which was very important, and give him 30 days to complete that process, they stamped him and gave him an 180-day tourist visa. Well, what we come to find out is that the conque or the residency system is separate from the tourist visa system and they do not talk to each other. So he was literally in two systems and he had to be deleted from one of them. And so the agent at the immigration office had to contact the agent at the airport and have him or her delete Albert's tourist record so that they could go through with the process. That took a couple of days, and I have to, hats off to you and your staff who literally did cartwheels and bent over backwards and schmoozed the folks at the immigration office. Because the day before we were leaving, the letter was actually issued that he was taken out of the tourist system. Please present yourself so that we can take fingerprints, photo, digital signature, and issue the card. And so that happened actually the day we were set to leave at 10:30 in the morning, and we were on
Yay.
a plane at 3 o'clock that afternoon. And so, it was frustrating. It was anxiety producing, but again, Omar and you as well also said, just take a deep breath. Like this is the Mexican process, and so just work with the system, and it all turned out well. But I guess the caveat to any folks that engage with you in the future and or are going through the process, make sure you check all of those things at the consulate in the US, where you're having the visa issued, and then also be aware of some of these little quirks that can happen as you go through the system.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for sharing that. I think that the great news and the out of what you shared is that I always say in Mexico, with the right person, anything can happen, like You need to know the right person in this country. It's a very different country than the US and Canada. So I was so glad, and I'm appreciating that both of you were so patient because it wasn't our team's fault. It was a glitch at the consulate, but we were able to support you and help you. And
Right.
again, by just, using our connections and our contacts here in Puerto Vallarta to sort that out and fix you, like right down to the wire, but that's usually Mexico's way. So I'm so glad that it worked out, and thank you for your trust and your patience and all of that. So,
Absolutely. We had full trust in everything that went on. And we had even come up with a plan B, that if they couldn't get the process done before leaving, that we would get a letter allowing Albert to leave the country because if you don't have that permission from them, it invalidates the whole process and he would have had to start the process from scratch. So again, just all of the coaching and the consulting along the way was beyond invaluable.